All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday, and you know what that means. Time for some Wednesday wisdom and diving deeper into the lost wisdom of the Pharaohs and the Hermetica. And once again, this comes to us from Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy. It's a Tarsher Cornerstone edition, and we have made our way through quite a journey in this series. So if you're just joining us in this series, then be sure after this video to go back and check out some of the rest of the videos in this series and in this playlist, because it has been powerful, ladies and gentlemen. Not only did we go through the history of the Hermetica in each of those sections, the Hermes and the reawakening of Europe, and the Renaissance, and how in 1460, one of these emissaries that was sent out by Cosimo de' Medici to search out for other lost pagan works, ladies and gentlemen, and the mystical and spiritual, occult, or esoteric knowledge of the ages. And he brought them back, came across the lost works of thrice great Hermes. Hermes Trismegistus, ladies and gentlemen. I like to attribute it to Thoth, or Thoth, the Egyptian god. Now, and he brought it back to Florence, and the Florentines, already reeling from the discovery of that an ancient civilization of immense sophistication, this is what this is all about. We were far more sophisticated and advanced, maybe in different ways, in the past than we are today and nowadays. And so, that's why we are here to discover the lost wisdom of the Pharaohs, the wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen. I like to call it the wisdom of the last golden age. And so with that being said, hope you got yourself some tea or a cold beverage, whatever beverage of your choice, and you got yourself a comfy chair and are ready. Because today, ladies and gentlemen, what does the tea say? We'll find out in just a second. But today we are going into the chapter or the section entitled The Universal and the Particular, continuing our discovery and understanding in our talking about, explaining, and go diving deeper into the concept of the Zodiac and astrology through the ancient Hermetic philosophy. And so the last couple chapters that we've gone through was man is a marvel. And in this chapter, Hermes discussed the nature of mankind and its special relationship with Atum, or God in this philosophy, source, life force, grand organized design, Tao, whatever God is for you, ladies and gentlemen. We discovered our relationship with that and our dual nature, and how we are soul or spirit enclosed by a physical body. The way it is described in this philosophy is we are mind, or the spiritual, non-physical part of ourselves that exists. Human beings are the meeting place of spirit and matter. We therefore have a dual nature. We are immortal, eternal, divine, and free, but at the same time, our physical body is destined to be governed by and controlled. So the body, on the other hand, said, is mortal and controlled by the laws of destiny, which are governed by the stars. And so that brings us to an understanding and a glimpse at the workings of this governance of our destiny by the stars, which is astrology or astrotheology or the Zodiac, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of different descriptions and ways to look into this. But so Hermes dared to suggest that this unique dual nature even placed us human beings above the gods being the heavenly bodies that are confined within their permanent orbits in the heavens, whatever the heavens may mean for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is open to contemplation. This is why it said all the way back in the first section of the prophecies of Hermes. Let's get to that real quick. He said, pure philosophy, and I will remind us this every time because this is what brings this all together. Pure philosophy is spiritual striving. Through constant contemplation. To attain, so this constant contemplation is an attempt to attain true knowledge of Atum, of the Tao, of the force, of God, of one God. The one God, it says here in the words of Hermes, of Atum, the one God. And so, in order to pursue this pure philosophy and this spiritual arriving, as I like to call it, rather than striving, we must continue to do it through constant contemplation. And so, the next section we went over, which was either last week or the week before, I'm never sure when I skip a week nowadays, the Zodiac and destiny. And in that chapter, Hermes explained the power of the Zodiac that controls the fate of all of us, men and women, and the possibility of us breaking free of its limiting constraints by becoming illuminated, so to speak. And so, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves today on section 13, diving deeper into the universal and the particular. And in this chapter today, Hermes clarifies how the Zodiac makes each individual member of the human species unique. And so, without any further ado, let's dive right into the lost wisdom of the Pharaohs and some more Wednesday wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, coming to us from the Hermetica by Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy, it's a Tarsha Cornerstone edition, and we are reading for purposes of teaching and commentary and expanding the mind so that we can create a greater understanding of the nature of reality in order to increase the quality of our experience. Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen. The universal and the particular begins by saying, quote, everything has a form. A table, for example, is a horizontal surface supported by legs. This is the universal form which all tables share. Now get this, because this immediately is going into deep philosophy here. So everything has a form. Books have the form of pages and covers and words, and all books share this universal form. And so back to the idea of tables here, a horizontal surface supported by a leg. This is the universal form. So you could say that all of humanity shares this universal form. There may be variances here and there of what style of that form, but as in trees and as in almost everything in reality, this gets you to wonder. See, this is discovering the nature of reality, ladies and gentlemen, in one sentence. But continuing here, every individual table shares the universal form of all tables, but it is also unique. It also has a unique particular form by which we know it to be this table and not that one, ladies and gentlemen. And so this goes back to that idea of the dual nature, on how we are oneness, a part of the oneness. We are all a part of the same thing, which is God or the force or Tao, or the grand organized design, whatever is doing everything, but leaving nothing undone. I mean, it isn't us sitting here beating our hearts and breathing our lungs, though we take a breath. It's not like I'm like, expand now, like doing all the processes of life from my thoughts. I'm sitting here reading a book, recording a video, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully you're getting value so far. It's good tea. Green tea kombucha. Yogi brand. Now, so this philosophy of the universal form and then the individual form being unique, but still a part of the universal form. Us being a part of the oneness, but at the same time being in the world of duality. And so, One table, it continues, is large and made of oak, let's say, and another table is small and made of plastic. Both are unique, and yet both are still tables. If anything deviates too far from this universal form, we would no longer call it a table. If a table were to be smashed into pieces, for example, it would have changed form, and we would now call it something else. Firewood, perhaps. This is all coming from the book. This is a good start to a section. Everything is a particular version of a universal form. So this is a key philosophy to understand here, ladies and gentlemen, that everything is a particular version of a universal form. Every animal, for example, is both unique and a member of a particular species. And so all human beings share the quality of being human, but each individual has unique characteristics by which we may tell them apart from other members of our species. And so each one of us is a particular version of the universal form human being. And so this quality of humanness is unchanging and permanent. We are very different from our ancestors, but we are no more human. See, this is beginning. I was wondering where it's going to go with this, and it's beginning to get deep, ladies and gentlemen. This might be a shorter one because we're already getting to the words of Hermes here. Maybe this is just a philosophy we need to understand here instead of rambling much more like we usually do, because I'm learning this along with you, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're getting value, then thank you for joining me and seeking after truth and the wisdom of the ages. So it's done a great job of explaining this nature of universal form and the particular, which was the name of this chapter, the universal and the particular. And so if each one of us is a particular version of the universal form of human being, then this quality of humanness is unchanging and permanent. Though we may say we are very different from our ancestors, at the same time, we are no more human because we are all a part of the same universal form. So this is making me think that we have the ability to get back to this great mystical, spiritual, philosophical understanding of the nature of reality and our role in it and the functionings of what we would call God and, everything that was lost during the Dark Ages and everything that led up to and afterwards, going back to the previous Golden Age. I'm not sure how long the cycles are, ladies and gentlemen, because it seems to be that there are many cycles within the Great Year or the Yuga cycles of the Golden Age and the Dark Age and in between times. It seems like there are many forms of these cycles within the grand one, taking place on a smaller scale throughout the entire timeline. And what I'm talking about there is these times that we started with all the way back to the Hermetica and early Christianity and the wisdom of the Pharaohs and the reawakening of Europe and the Renaissance and all of these things coming to us from a lost age before that seemed to be a highly advanced time of an understanding of all of this esoteric, occult, some would call it, but pagan, which is what the Christians called it when they destroyed it and swept it under the rug and used the same philosophies in their own understandings and theology. And so now we find ourselves here, ladies and gentlemen, being of the same universal form as our ancestors that existed not only in the Golden Ages, but the Dark Ages. And if we are of the same universal form, then this means to me that we should have the same capacity to do what it is that we have done before and become a table. I'm kidding, ladies and gentlemen. We're not becoming tables, but we are becoming what our greatest ancestors once were, back before we fell in consciousness through the Dark Ages. But, ladies and gentlemen, this particular form of human is very interesting. The particular forms are always changing, the book continues. In a single human life, we change from being a baby to become an adult, and finally an elder, and we never remain the same, yet birth, mortality, and death are all contained within the universal form of human life. So they do remain the same. It's just the same thing as the universe. Although it is constantly changing, when we learned about the living cosmos, we learned that it is constantly changing, but ever unmoving. It is eternal and changeless, yet it is always unmoving. It is very fascinating, this dual nature of reality, ladies and gentlemen, but it is important to understand that we must have both sides, positive and negative, electric and magnetic, two sides to the pole for it to be whole, so to speak. And this is, you can see this in all kinds of imagery throughout our history, all the way up into the way you can see this metaphor play itself out through all of reality, I would say. But that's a deeper thing than what we're getting at here. We're talking about Hermes compares, the book continues, the constant universal forms to the fixed constellations of the stars. So we're bringing it back to the Zodiac here. And so he compares the changing particular forms to the changing relationships between the stars as they revolve in the heavens. And I'll add, as we journey through our cycles through the houses as well, or the heavens, or through each of these constellations that makes up the Zodiac, ladies and gentlemen. And so the changing relationships between the stars as they revolve, and as we, and our relationship between the constellations and the stars as we revolve as well, ladies and gentlemen. But this all comes down to a debate about the nature of all of that. And if we're stationary and the heavens just revolve around us, or if it is as we thought we so smartly learned that we revolve around, it's all of this is up for discussion because this is an ancient knowledge. And so we like to think since these times we've learned a whole lot more about the nature of reality. But have we, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we will find out one day. But continuing on, our fundamental human nature remains the same throughout our life, but our individual fate changes in accordance with the constantly changing pattern of the stars. As in astrology, Hermes teaches that our individual destiny is created by the positions of the planets at our moment of birth. This is a very commonly understood thing, and this is coming to us from the Hermetic wisdom of the ages and of ancient Egypt and later. So, Hermes teaches that our individual destiny, I'll say this again, is created by the positions of the planets at the moment of our birth. These are, quote unquote, gods. These are the gods that take charge of us, controlling our bodies and shaping our souls. And that ends the intro to this section, The Universal and the Particular, by Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy. It's pretty much a description of what is said by the words of Hermes here. But Hermes always says it so much powerful. And that is powerful, ladies and gentlemen. Discovering the universal and the particular through a simple example of the table, and then going into how that compares with the zodiac and destiny and our universal form of life, and then that being influenced by the stars, by our timing, I would guess, time of our birth and the time of our living, and all of it. And now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive right into the words of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest, the universal and the particular. Atum arranged the constellations of the zodiac in harmony with the movements of nature, and charged them with producing all the forms of the animals. When these gods had used their different powers, there emerged four-footed beasts, creeping things, fishes and winged birds, grass and flowering herbs, all according to their different natures, and each contained the seed of the continuance of their species. Every living thing has its own unique form, given to it by the power of the zodiac. This form is appropriate to its species, yet it is individual. The human race, for example, shares a common universal form by which we know that a man is a man. Yet all human beings have a distinctly different particular form, of which no two are entirely alike. Each particular form is unique because it inhabits a unique time and place. The particular forms change in every moment of every hour, as the gods of the zodiac revolve in their celestial circle. The universal forms do not change, just as the constellations remain the same. But instant by instant, the particular forms transform, as the sphere of heaven changes as it turns. The sky is wet and then dry, cold and then hot, bright and then dark. But these rapidly alternating forms are all subsumed under the universal unchanging form of the sky. The earth is ever changing, generating, producing, yielding different crops, yet it remains the earth. Water may be standing or flowing, but it is still water. The human body is an earthly temple constructed by the power of the zodiac, which makes myriad forms from simple archetypes. There are 12 signs of the zodiac, and the forms they produce fall into 12 divisions. They are, however, inseparably united in their action. Nature makes the human body so that its constitution resonates with the patterns of the stars in such a way that they mutually affect one another. When we are born, the planetary gods who are at that time on duty as ministers of birth take charge of us. These particular powers that change according to the rotation of the planets make their way in through the body and mold the shape of our souls. They penetrate our nerves and marrow, veins and arteries, even our innermost organs. And that finishes the section, ladies and gentlemen, the universal and particular, and an astrological, mystical, occult, esoteric, philosophical description of how the zodiac and astrology forms our destiny and has a play in the role of reality or the functioning of reality. That was powerful, ladies and gentlemen. Phew. That's one that I would take reading and rereading quite a few times and some constant contemplation. Constant contemplation, ladies and gentlemen. So admit that last section there about the human body is an earthly temple constructed by the power of the zodiac, but it's described in previous chapters the construction of humanity, for the gods will never pass their celestial boundaries. Humankind, we were influenced due to honor and reverence, take on the attributes of the gods as if we were one of their number. This is a lot of references. See, each one of these chapters, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot of references to previous sections or chapters. Humanity looked in awe upon the beauty and everlasting duration of creation. Fantastic. Okay, here it is, the creation of mankind. God created mankind because he wanted there to be a creature capable of appreciating the great beauty of his cosmos. And so he asked each of the gods who administer the cosmos, this being the zodiac, or no, because the gods are separate than the constellations. So there are 12 houses or constellations that make up the zodiac, and then there are 7 gods, the 5 major planets and the sun and the moon. Interesting. So our lives, our fate, our destiny, our abilities, our uniqueness, whatever it be, our traits and our characteristics, all of these things that make up our lives as individuals is a combination, apparently, of the attributes of the gods who administer the cosmos to provide something to benefit humanity. So we get all these characteristics, like the sun gave joy, the moon gave sleep, Saturn offered the limits of necessity, the balancing force of justice, and Jupiter peace, and Mercury wisdom, Mars struggle, Venus love, and all of these things. And then we get to where we are now, and there are 12 signs of the zodiac, and the forms they produce fall into 12 divisions that are universal, no, that are particular, but fall under the universal form of the zodiac. They are, however, inseparably united by their action. So nature makes the human body so that this part really stuck with me, and I think there's something really deep to this part right here. Nature makes the human body so that its constitution, what does the word constitution means? Because this is just a translation of the words of Thoth or Hermes, thrice greatest. In a slimmed down, easier to read form here in the Hermetica. Let's see. So remember, it says on the back of the book here, here's the first truly accessible compendium of the mystical philosophy attributed to the legendary sage god Hermes Trismegistus. Now, it is a fascinating introduction into the intersection of Egyptian and Hellenic cultures and the mystical spiritual calls it magico-religious ideas of the antique world, but I would call it the lost wisdom of the ages. But it is I don't know, I guess it doesn't say it here on the back, but this is a slimmed down version of a much bigger text. And so, but when it comes to saying this here to us, that nature makes the human body so that its constitution resonates, knowing about frequencies and harmonies and resonation and how reality is created by a certain level of frequencies and electromagnetic interactions going from the world of the waves or frequencies to the world of the particles. This is very deep, ladies and gentlemen. That's why it said back in the first section, constant contemplation through the spiritual striving. Pure philosophy and spiritual striving is constant contemplation, ladies and gentlemen, easy enough for me to say. Yeah, pure philosophy is spiritual striving through constant contemplation to attain the true knowledge of reality, I would say. And so this is powerful. Nature falls in love. So, see, I'm going to end reading this little section because that was powerful too. Because to do this, so at first humanity was just a thought. We didn't exist physically. We didn't have that dual nature of mortality and immortality. We were just a thought, a soul. It is unable to tend and look after the earth if we were just a thought or an image of the mind of God, as it was described earlier, or wisps, or spiritual. You can find this in the difference between the two creation stories in Genesis 1 and 2, or early Genesis, anyways. It seems as if we were non-physical for a while, and then there was like a reset, and then we were physical beings trapped in mortality as an immortal spiritual being. But this is coming to us from long before the fabrication of those stories, which are probably based on these stories anyway. So as first humanity was just a thought or a soul, being purely spiritual, unable to tend and look after the earth as was God's intention, or Atum's intention. So God gave each of us a mortal body with which to house the immortal soul. But to do this, he first created nature. And so this goes back to the spot where I was just stuck on. Nature makes the human body so that its constitution resonates with the patterns of the stars in such a way that we mutually affect one another. So those of us that don't think we have an impact on things, our resonations, which could mean our thoughts and our intentions or our vocalizations or our actions, any of it, has an effect on all of reality, because reality is governed and controlled by the universal laws that are laid into the body of destiny, which is the constellations of the stars. The black body of destiny being the goddess destiny being the black background of the sky at night, in which the universal laws that govern reality were written into the body of the goddess destiny by the sprinkling of the stars. But at the same time, the gods, being each of the planets and the sun and the moon, also have principles by which they govern the cosmos and influence humanity as well. And so if God was trying to make us physical, I keep saying God, but I'm thinking like the universe, this non-physical, life force or energy that is everything. Everything is contained within this thing, and nothing is outside of it because it is everything. But when this thing apparently was creating everything, to do so, first it had to create nature to get us in order to have mortal bodies to house the immortal soul. And nature was made like a beautiful woman, And God made her mistress of the world, which is weird that it had to have that in there, but I guess that makes sense because going back to the polarities that are necessary to create reality. And so you have these poles of the masculine and the feminine principles representing positive and negative, or electric and magnetic working in different ways together to have and create an electromagnetic union. But this is all what's just coming to my mind from having thought about this and gone through this and contemplated on this for some time. It's been a couple of years that I've been, maybe longer, thinking about this spiritual, esoteric, mystical, some would call it occult, or ancient pagan, whatever, great philosophy and wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen, spiritual philosophy. And so she produces the seeds of natural life. Seeing in the human soul an image of God, nature falls in love and merges with her beloved. Nature being the physical, the human soul being the spiritual, creating a union, or this dual nature. See, this is when we became physical. And this blending of the body and soul, which produces each one of us. Hence, all human beings have a dual nature. Okay. Fascinating. So then we honor both sides of our nature when we serve God by administering the natural world for him. And then he gives us the ability to reproduce, which says is the last great gift. So then that brings us back to what I was stuck on there. That nature made our body so that its constitution has a resonation or a connection or a working with the patterns of the stars in such a way that they mutually affect one another. And so that if in every moment of every hour, as the gods of the zodiac revolve in their cycles, see, that's where I was getting confused. As it was saying the gods of the zodiac, I was thinking of the planetary gods. But the gods of the zodiac are separate. Interesting, ladies and gentlemen. And so, instant by instant, the particular forms transform, but just as everything else does, just as the constellations remain the same because of their universal forms. This is fascinating and deep, and this, ladies and gentlemen, was an esoteric philosophical could take a drive, dive into the universal and the particular, and an understanding of destiny and the zodiac. I'm just going to read this one section again here because it was powerful. The human body is an earthly temple constructed by the power of the zodiac, which makes myriad forms from simple archetypes. See, that's powerful there. That could be an entire hour-long discussion in its own. That the power or these archetypes of the houses or the gods of the zodiac, the power of the zodiac, and the human body being constructed as a temple from the power of that zodiac, which makes tons of different forms, but they are from these 12 simple archetypes. And these archetypes and constant contemplation and pure philosophy to discover and attain true knowledge of these archetypes and of our relationship to them as individuals, which, having being born at a particular time and place and getting the influence of our particular archetypes from whatever gods, what did it say about birth? whatever gods were in charge. Where did it say that? Yet all human beings, constellation of the god, produced all forms of the animals. When these gods have used their different powers, every living thing has its own unique form given to it by the power of the zodiac. And so I'm not getting to the spot where it talked about birth there. Taking charge. See, their particular forms in every moment of every hour, as the gods of the zodiac revolve in their celestial, they change, but the archetypes remain the same. But at the same time, it is all contained within the universal form. Paradoxes, ladies and gentlemen, right here. Hermes teaches us that our destiny is created by the positions of the planets. And see, that's what was throwing me off. This Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy part here, I think, is confused or was a typo. Because in the words of Hermes here, he is talking about the constellations of the zodiac, and there being 12 of them. And when these gods, the gods of the zodiac, so not the positions of the planets, but the positions of the constellations and the planets at the same time. See, they just said in their description here, which is just fine. We're using this for reference, and we appreciate all their work getting us this far. So a thank you to Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy, but this is why we're thinking this through to try to get a greater understanding of the nature of reality so we can increase the quality of our experience of our lives, ladies and gentlemen. But so that Hermes teaches that our individual destiny is created by the positions of the planets at our moment of birth, and these are the quote-unquote gods who take charge of us, controlling our bodies and shaping our world. So the archetypes, the universal archetypes of the 12 individual constellations, and as well as the 7 planets, influence the shaping and the creation of our natural body and our destiny and the fate of ourselves, which is controlled by the power of apparently not even the zodiac, but the planetary archetypes as well. So the gods of the zodiac and the gods that are the planets come together, and there are 12 signs, and their forms fall into divisions. They are, however, inseparably united in their action. And so we'll end on that section that I love so much. No, we'll mix it together here, because here I'm discovering more. When we are born, the planetary gods, who are at that time on duty as ministers of birth, take charge of us. So that's what I was trying to find. These particular powers that change according to the rotation make their way in through the body to mold the shape of our souls. And so this is a correlation to the creation of mankind. That was chapter 9 or section 9. I have this book linked below in the description if you want to get it for yourself, to put it on your shelf so you can follow along, ladies and gentlemen, and have this for reference in your own discovery. But it's, so she was like a woman, God falls in love, nature merges with the human soul, which was an image of God. And so this is just like this blending of body and soul produces the dual nature of immortal and mortal, or non-physical, spiritual, and physical. And the same thing here, it happens that according to the rotation, they make their way in through the body and mold their shape of our soul. So it's a spiritual and physical combination again. this gaining the characteristics of each of the powers of the zodiac which is we are influenced by those archetypes. Yeah. It says the myriad forms come from simple archetypes that are the 12 signs. But then when we are born, the planetary gods, who are at that time on duty as ministers of birth, give us their particular powers, but change in accordance to the positioning of all of it. Now, this is very basic, simple understanding for anybody who knows a good bit about astrology and these kind of philosophies, but for me, this is worth the time and the constant contemplation because we're trying to discover and attain, ladies and gentlemen, the lost wisdom of the ages and the lost wisdom of the pharaohs. I hope you get value, ladies and gentlemen. And if you do, I hope you consider subscribing. More importantly, share this with somebody who you think could get value from this, because sometimes we have an abundance of this kind of knowledge in our video suggestion feed, but some others that really need it do not, and are getting terrible distractive suggestions that are not helping them evolve themselves to become a greater version of themselves, or just to discover something helpful in their lives so they can have a greater understanding and a greater awareness of the nature of reality so that they can hopefully increase the quality of their experience and of their lives. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a boom to the lost wisdom of the pharaohs in the section entitled The Universal and the Particular, an understanding. Yeah, I don't even know what I'm going to call this one, ladies and gentlemen. The universal and the particular, a deeper dive into understanding the zodiac and astrology. I don't know. Next section, next week, ladies and gentlemen, Wednesday Wisdom will be section 14, entitled Incarnation of the Soul. And in that chapter, Hermes reveals how souls incarnate into physical bodies. See, this is where I was just getting to today at the end there. That's what was causing me so much back and forth thinking and debating, is how all of this plays a role, how all of these archetypes, whether it be the planetary gods or the gods of the constellations or the zodiac, and how it goes from the spiritual to the physical and how that plays a role in all of this. And so next week we'll be diving deeper into a more, wow, this one's a lot longer too, 3 or 4 or 5 pages of the words of Hermes, but so that we can get a greater understanding of everything it is that we've been learning so far, ladies and gentlemen. And so with that being said, continue to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and greater understanding of the nature of reality in the world that we find ourselves in. Seek to discover the lost wisdom of the ages and seek to discover the hidden mysteries of our history, ladies and gentlemen. And remember that there is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. And when we can bring happiness to life, then all the things that we've been telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I get there, or I'm that kind of person, or all of that becomes irrelevant because then we are there. And hopefully the entire journey is wonderful. All right. I love and appreciate each and every one of you, especially those of you that joins me here in the premieres and the live chat. I love to interact with you. A1 and Gorilla Press yesterday. Thank you so much. Shout out to you. You too. And be sure to expand the description below and tell me to update my Etsy shop because I'm lazy and you want cheap, high quality landscape paintings, as well as a link to C60 Purple Power, ladies and gentlemen, the most powerful antioxidant known to man. Give yourself the gift of health and also get the book for yourself to put it on your shelf. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I love and appreciate each of you once again, and we will see you next week on more Tuesday Tao and Wednesday Wisdom, living the wisdom of the Tao and discovering the lost wisdom of the Pharaohs. Be the change you want to see. Be the example. No, 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 no.